It's the 3rd of January 2021, the first Sunday of this new year. Happy New Year to our viewers here in Kenya and around the world. I hope you enjoyed the festivities and now back and ready for the serious business and already with your resolutions. And here in the country, the curfew is extended for a further 2.5 months. The head of state has extended the 4 a.m. to the dusk to dawn curfew for another 2.5 months to the 12th of March this year. And this, he says, follows the COVID-19 daily reports that are being recorded here in the country. And also we heard today Health Cabinet Secretary saying that the country has been recording a positivity rate of below the 5% for the last 7 days. So we are not doing so bad, and we only need to maintain that curve for another 1 week before the country could say it's flattened its curve. It's also back to school and it's all system go tomorrow. All learners are expected to resume classes, and we will be having a discussion with the parent and the chairperson of the Parents Association to just bring us to speed on their preparedness. Remember, the economy was badly hit by the COVID-19. So what are some of the challenges they are facing? The Cabinet Secretary for Transport did assure that there will be no fare hike for those returning back to school. So we'll be also monitoring that tomorrow and see whether that will happen. Welcome to Channel 1 Weekend. My name is Purity Museo. Let's begin with the highlights. Staying vigilant. Dusk to dawn curfew extended for 2.5 months as government monitors COVID-19 infection rates. Back to class. Government spells out draft of new health and safety measures to protect learners ahead of the resumption of learning. And tackling the transport headache. Government warns PSVs against hiking fares as it reviews the rail transport schedule to meet commuter demands. At Purity_Museo and at KBC Channel 1 News, the hashtag tonight is Family Matters KBC. And on the show, we speak about COVID-19 and mental health. The World Health Organization has released reports that there is a serious funding gap when it comes to access to mental health services. And right now, 15 people in every 100,000 are committing suicide. And Kenya is among the countries struggling with the funding gap when it comes to accessing the mental health services. And the mental health crisis has been occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. So Elmad Regan is our guest tonight. Welcome to the broadcast. Lensa Odingo is our sign language interpreter tonight. Let's kick off this bulletin. And the dusk to dawn curfew has been extended for another 2.5 months as the government continues to monitor the COVID-19 pandemic. President Uhuru Kenyatta, in reviewing the COVID-19 containment measures, warned the country is not out of woods yet, despite a drop in the positivity rate. Safina Cheng Oma with details of the revealed containment measures ahead of the full resumption of learning.
On November 4th last year, during the 13th presidential address on the coronavirus, President Uhuru Kenyatta announced several measures aimed at containing the spread of COVID-19 in the country. With the lapse of 60 days since the announcement of the measures, the president says COVID-19 remains a threat to the health and livelihoods of Kenyans, opting to extend some of the containment measures. An executive order by the president directed that the nationwide dusk to dawn curfew be extended for another 90 days until the 12th of March 2021. This means movement is restricted from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. daily. Directives on religious gatherings shall remain unchanged, with organizers of any indoor religious gathering other than for the purpose of a wedding or funeral required to do so in accordance with the guidelines issued by the Interfaith Council. all forms of public events and gatherings which may act as super spreader events for COVID-19, including political and roadside gatherings, also remain suspended for the next 60 days, with the exception of burials and weddings, which shall only be conducted with prior approval and with the number of persons being capped at a maximum of 150 persons. All overnight vigils or events of any kind will also remain prohibited. The President has urged Kenyans to observe the Ministry of Health guidelines on wearing face masks, social distancing, regular hand washing, and cleaning and disinfecting frequently touched surfaces. For Channel 1 News, I'm Safin Aching Oma.
Also, the government has set up a joint command center to oversee the full reopening of schools set for Monday across the country. This comes as the Minister of Education put in place stringent measures to protect learners, teaching and non-teaching staff from contracting the virus. Caroline Kamau with details of the policy measures that will, among other things, say a stoppage of extracurricular activities with less than 24 hours to resumption of in-person learning.
With less than 12 hours left to the reopening of schools in which 16 million learners are expected in school, the government multi-agency team held a meeting with education stakeholders and parents. The word emerged after a closed-door meeting to give a policy direction to protect learners from contracting COVID-19.
The Ministry of Health has issued protocols on each of the issues that we are speaking to today, specifically addressing the safety of the children. And it's not just the safety of the children, it's the safety of the teachers as well.
The question of achieving social distancing in schools remained a thorn in the flesh, with Education CS Professor George Magoha urging teachers to be ingenious, adding the government has since increased the number of desks to schools.
We have said that you can use, the teachers should be innovative. Our gallant teachers being innovative, it means every open space in the school, the dining hall, the assembly hall, the school auditorium, can be used as classrooms and converted when the purpose for which it was meant is required, including open spaces, weather permitting.
At the same time, a command center has been set up to monitor the situation in schools, which will receive real-time information.
We are putting up a joint command center that is integrated, brings together all the institutions, including the Council of Governors, so that we'll be receiving information from across the country in real time where there are issues that need to be addressed, and all agencies are mobilized to address them in real time as we move along.
Other measures in place include teachers and other staff aged 58 years and above or have pre-existing conditions are expected to work remotely. Government has prohibited non-essential visits to school by parents or guardians, and any visits to school shall be recorded. All extracurricular activities such as sports, drama, prize-giving day and music involving more than one school is banned for 3 months. Principals and head teachers shall maintain a register of all sick pupils or teachers and notify the county health department of any illness, whether moderate or severe. Schools will resume to complete the 2020 academic calendar, with Term 2 set to run for a duration of 11 weeks from 4th of January to 19th of March. Term 3 will begin on 10th of May to 16th of July. The 2021 calendar shall commence on the 26th of July to 1st of October and will be 10 weeks long. Term 2 shall begin on the 11th of October to 23rd December and will be 11 weeks long. Term 3 will begin on 3rd of January 2022 for 9 weeks to end on 4th of March in 2022. Caroline Kamau reporting for Channel 1 News.
Still on the containment measures, the government has spelled out a raft of measures to protect learners from contracting COVID-19. The measures include, among others, mandatory wearing of face masks and establishment of hand washing points in all learning institutions in the country. The government has in the meantime classified teachers as frontline workers, saying they shall be among the first people to be considered for vaccination in the coming months. The announcement coming amid some good news that Kenya has recorded no COVID-19 related death in the last 24 hours.
For the first time in several months, Kenya has not recorded any COVID-19 related death in its daily briefings. The government says it hopes to build on such successes, even as it discourages Kenyans against complacency. On Sunday, the government announced a raft of measures it says will ensure smooth resumption of learning in the country. All learners and teachers shall be required to wear face masks while in school or on transit.
Pleaded with the parents, most of who can buy masks, to buy at least 2 reusable masks. For those 3 million children who will require masks, and including those others in the PP1 and PP2 that cannot afford masks, masks shall be made available to them.
Additionally, all schools have been directed to ensure they have adequate hand washing stations corresponding to student population. However, schools experiencing challenges of water have been urged to ensure availability of hand sanitizers.
Sanitizer may then help. But if sanitizers are brought to school, they must be in the custody of teachers, and they must be used outside in the public place where everybody is seeing, so that our gallant children don't use them for other things.
Over the last 1 week, the country has recorded a low positivity rate of below 5%. Counties have been directed to ensure their isolation facilities are well prepared for any eventuality.
And therefore, that is why we have asked that the preparations for all sorts of isolation facilities in counties and so on are all put in place just in the event.
The government has in the meantime classified teachers as frontline workers, meaning the tutors now stand a chance of being among the first recipients of the much-awaited COVID-19 vaccine.
Part of the definition of a healthcare worker in going forward for the use of the vaccine is also the teachers who are operating in, with very many children and therefore just as vulnerable as other frontline soldiers.
The development comes as 124 new COVID-19 infections were recorded from a sample size of 2,855. The latest figures have increased Kenya's COVID-19 caseload to 96,802, with the number of fatalities remaining constant after no death was reported Sunday. The government says that all measures have been put in place to ensure the safety of learners as they resume school on Monday, following a disruption of the school calendar by the COVID-19 pandemic in March. Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
Live from the KICC. Thank you so much, Nancy Okware. The Minister of Transport is warning public service operators against hiking fares in the wake of resumption of full learning set for Monday in a bid to ensure access to transport. The government has issued a new schedule of operations for the standard gauge railway and commuter trains to ensure learners report to school on time. This comes as families were left stranded as PSVs opted to increase fares while others could not travel owing to the limited spaces, with PSVs required to carry only 60% of the capacity as per the COVID-19 regulations.
In Nairobi, hundreds of commuters desperate to travel ahead of the resumption of learning, while others were arriving in the city following the end of the festivities. With PSVs required to carry only 60% of their capacity owing to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government has cautioned PSVs against exploiting commuters.
The last thing we want is them to be overcharged in terms of the kids going back to school.
At the same time, Transport Cabinet Secretary James Amashari says the government, in recognizing the transport challenges, has opted to increase the number of trips by commuter trains into the city.
And so we cannot discuss about our kids being in school without discussing about how they will get to school.
For those traveling between counties, the standard gauge railway line will also be available in the morning and evening.
We shall double the capacity of our inter-county trains.
The train to Nanyuki has also been activated.
We shall have a train ready from here to Nairobi, from Nairobi all the way to Nanyuki, which will be carrying about 1,500.
Other measures to ensure safety of commuters will include a mandatory alcohol test for all PSV drivers, and no driver will be allowed to drive for long distances without rest.
We shall not allow anybody getting into those vehicles who has been drinking in the previous 1 or 2 days.
But as the CS was making the pronouncements, commuters were stranded at the bus station as PSV operators opted to hike fares.
Ana report shule kesho na nimekosa gari. Imejaa. Imeni affect cause part of hiyo nauli kwa juu mtoto angesukuma nayo kipocket money hivi.
Like today we woke up at 4. We've been in the stage in Kitale from 4. We just got a vehicle at 8 and the price was double. Everything is laying on the parents, and the parents, we don't have much, also just struggling like any other normal citizen in Kenya.
When they reach now Nairobi, there's no money for school fees now. Tomorrow a child is going to school, there's no money. What will happen?
Other operators, however, maintained they had not hiked their prices.
So sisi tupandishi ama tushukishi. Bei yetu inakuanga hivyo, hata kama ni December, bei yetu inasimamanga kuwa hivyo constant.
There's no need. Wale watu ni wale unabeba kila wakati. Unawabeba kwenda, unawabeba kurudi. Acha nini wapandishie nauli.
Kesho ndio tunatarajia wanafunzi na pia kesho kutwa tunatarajia kuwa na wanafunzi wengi zaidi. Tuko na magari ya kutosha, watu wamekaribishwa.
With just a few hours left before schools formally reopen once again, parents are hopeful that transport companies will not hike their prices or rather regulate them to avoid unprecedented costs. Reporting for Channel 1 from Nairobi, my name is Yusuf Farah.
Thank you so much, Yusuf Farah, for that report. And what's your take on schools reopening tomorrow? And remember, this comes at a time when the world is still fighting COVID-19, and a face mask is one of the requirements for learners going back to school tomorrow. So what's your take on schools reopening? Are parents ready? Most of them are decrying the hard economic times. At Purity_Museo and at KBC Channel 1 News, the hashtag is Channel 1 Weekend Side. Peter, you saying you're tuned in from Testoland, and Lorraine from Leighton, let God be in control ahead of schools reopening. Keep tweeting. I'll be going through your feedback during this broadcast. In a separate matter, 3 people have died after a boat capsized in Lake Baringo. The boat is reported to have been carrying more people than its recommended capacity at the time of the accident. Among those who lost their lives are sisters who are said to have been on an expedition tour of Lake Baringo ahead of schools reopening.
A somber mood has engulfed Kambi Samaki in Baringo County after 3 people lost their lives while 9 others escaped death after the boat in which they were traveling in capsized in Lake Baringo. Among those that met their death is 16 years old Form 2 student and a 2-year-old baby. Roger Skipsang narrated how he tried to save the 4 children who had clung on his shoulders for over an hour before the 2 children drowned. The search for the victims was suspended Sunday and is set to resume Monday.
Boti inatakikana ibebe capacity fulani. Sasa ikabeba watu zaidi. Kama hiyo boti inatakikana ibebe watu 8, imebeba watu 12.
Elsewhere, authorities in Igembe North have launched investigations into the alleged circumcision of 2 girls in the region. Authorities say the 2 have since been taken in for treatment, even as residents are warned against the retrogressive practice.
Koti yasane na mambo ya mbondi kwa sababu sisi Antoamboi washisana wamekeketwa sana, hiyo saindi ya mea na lukununu.
Meanwhile, residents of Shinyalu, Kakamega County are mourning the death of a woman who was allegedly killed by a bull. Residents now want the bull slaughtered or sold in line with traditional beliefs.
Shida ni kwamba ilikuwa imefungwa kamba mrefu, na vile huyo mama alikuwa anapita ikamtokezea, ikamtungatunga na pembe zake, na huyo mama akafariki.
Timothy Kipnusu for Channel 1 News.
Let's now have a look at some politics. ODM party leader Raila Odinga has rallied the Muslim community in Mombasa County to support the Building Bridges initiative. Speaking in Nyali constituency, Raila called on the Muslims to embrace and support the BBI, saying it is the key to addressing national challenges, among them historical injustices that the coastal region is grappling with.
On Sunday, Raila Odinga took the BBI gospel to Mombasa County, where he urged a section of Muslim faithful to support the ongoing clamor for constitutional review. Odinga said the ongoing push for constitutional reforms is meant to cure the negative impact of historical injustices in the country.
inaitwa administrative actions ambayo inatakana serikali itekeleze iko ndani. Pili, kuna sheria zingine ambayo bado ziko pale za kikoloni, kuna sheria zingine ambayo sio sawa, sheria zingine ambayo zinabagua wengine, kuna sheria zingine ambayo zinatakana ifanye marekebisho kidogo, naitwa legal actions. Hizo zote tayari uswada zimeshaandikwa, natakana ipeleke kwa bunge ipitishe.
Mambo ya land, BBI imeyataja itasolve mambo ya land. Blue economy imetajwa kwa mara ya kwanza. Mpwani, mtu wa Nyanza mwenye Lake Victoria na Turkana, yeyote ambaye kwa ana maji mengi kwa BBI atafaidika na hayo maji kwa BBI. BBI imeleta taasisi ya mtu wa mnazi. Kwa mara ya kwanza BBI ikipita tawako kuna kiwanda maalumu cha mtu wa mnazi.
A section of leaders in the ruling Jubilee Party have accused Odinga of using the BBI process to poison the ruling party.
Jubilee wamekuwa na shida yao. Na sisi tutakubali Jubilee. Mambo ya Jubilee ni yao wenyewe. Wanaanza kujaribu kutuchafua sisi, lakini sisi tuko na msimamo kamili ambayo tunataka kutekeleza.
Odinga's sentiments coming amid concerted efforts by his party to brush off its recent defeat in Msambweni constituency. The loss by ODM in the by-election appears to have given voice to pockets of political formations seeking to tilt the balance of political persuasion in the region.
Pale tumetoka. Sasa unaona wale ambao walikuwa pale ambao walifanya uhalifu wameruka, sasa wanasema ati Raila ndio mhalifu. Raila hajaingia kwa serikali. Nje ya serikali ni ile ambayo tumefanya mpaka wa leo ni kujaribu kutekeleza yale tulikubaliana na Mungu. Lakini yule ambaye amekuwa naibu wake enzi ile ya kwanza amefanya miaka 5, sasa tena miaka 3 amefanya, wanaanza kuruka sasa, sema yeye anasema yeye si responsible mambo ya BBI. Mambo ya BBI anakula mshahara, akona security, wana kila kitu ndani ya hiyo serikali. Alafu yeye anaanza kudhulumu hiyo serikali, anasema Raila yuko responsible.
Mombasa Governor Hassan Joho, a perceived ODM point man in the Coast region, has however downplayed the efforts, urging the Coast region to be very wary of partisan politicians driven by selfish interests. In a rejoinder, Malindi Member of Parliament Aisha Jumwa has accused the governor of hypocrisy, claiming there is no turning back on plans to form political outfit that will remain true to the needs of the coastal region.
Chama cha kisiasa cha chimbuko la Kipwani kipo na kipo tayari, na si mzaha kama ulivyofikiria na kutuwekea kejeli ya kwamba safari hii wapwani katika mwavuli wa chama hicho watakuwa na sauti katika ngazi ya kitaifa.
Meanwhile, Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua has urged Kenyans to unshackle themselves from politics of tribalism.
Tunatumiwa tu wakati wa siasa. Sijui kama nyinyi mmezoea kama sisi, wakati wa siasa ndio mnakumbukwa. Wanaanza kuja kuitisha kura, si ndio? Lakini hatuoni maendeleo yakija. Lakini wakati umefika sasa, sisi tukiwa majirani tuseme tumechoka kuenjoywa. Hatutaki tabia ya kila wakati kutumiwa.
Governor Mutua urged Kenyans to reject the culture of ethnic balkanization and vet leaders on their development track record. For Channel 1 News, I'm Gladys Mungai.
Still on BBI, the Building Bridges Initiative Task Force is seeking to bar persons who have within 5 years preceding an election held office or stood for elective political positions from appointment to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Through the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, the task force has also proposed that disputes arising from political party nominations be handled by the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal and not by REBC. Kevin Washira with the details.
The proposed constitutional review seeks to enhance transparency at the electoral agency by proposing amendments to Article 88 of the Constitution. Clause 9 of the bill proposes to bar persons who have, within 5 years preceding an election, held office or stood for election as president, deputy president, county governor or member of parliament from being members of the IEBC. Further, the proposed amendment mandates the IEBC to ensure a list of candidates nominated by a political party for an election comply with the principle that not more than 2/3 of the nominated candidates shall be of the same gender. The amendment also seeks to remove the jurisdiction of handling disputes arising from the nominations of candidates by political parties from IEBC and vest it in the political parties disputes tribunal. The import of this is to achieve speedy adjudication of such disputes and streamline the mandate of the commission. Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
The onset of the COVID-19 pandemic was viewed by environmentalists as a blessing in disguise as planes were grounded, factories shut, and public spaces emptied, allowing nature to blossom. In Nairobi, President Uhuru Kenyatta launched a campaign to restore green spaces and revert Nairobi to its former glory days as the city in the sun. Reporter Emily Kibade visited some of these parks months since they were opened to assess their status and if indeed Kenyans were enjoying the greenery. Take a look.
On 14th of August 2020, President Uhuru Kenyatta would officiate the start of what he termed the Green Renaissance by opening the John Michuki Memorial Park in honor of the late former Environment CS John Michuki, who had a vision to restore Nairobi River.
The future is not in the concrete spaces. The future is in the green spaces bequeathed to us by nature and God.
4 months down the line, this is the situation at Michuki Park, formerly known as the Mazingira Park. A handful of Kenyans are enjoying the afternoon sun in the well-manicured lawns, perhaps the low numbers as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic that has seen a majority of Kenyans remain indoors, or simply since Kenyans are yet to appreciate the serenity of the green spaces. Here we stumble on Benjamin Dolo. He says it is his first time to visit the park.
Yes, I didn't even know this place really exists. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I even took a picture and tweeted. It's beautiful.
He says he has stumbled on the park as he was passing through.
I think Wangari Maathai, Honorable Wangari Maathai would be very proud, would be very happy. And that's why I'm here, just by myself, walking around, and then I go for a late lunch.
But as little activity was happening at the John Michuki Memorial Park, the situation was different at the Nairobi Arboretum. Kenyans were spending time with their families ahead of the resumption of schools. Others opting to enjoy the solitude and meditate, while others opted to exercise and keep fit. According to Rogers Kadhengi from Kitengela, the park has always been a place he visits with his family to meditate and bond from the busy hustle and bustle of the city life.
It creates an ambience for me just to bond with my family in this peace because of just nature. I like nature a lot. Start up the year, one of the things we do as a family is we discuss our vision. So part of the reason we came here is to just do our vision board. We as a couple and discuss it and pray, then we call it a day.
Arboretum Park is popularly known for group or couple meetup and church fellowship, as one pastor, Titus Kiandi from Isili, tells us.
They call a place whereby you can just come and talk to God, relax. Saa ingine kuna stress za familia, unaweza kwa bibi ama mzee alikupeleka juu. Arboretum is a nice place.
But the COVID-19 pandemic has seen business at the park take a nosedive, according to Maximila Odhiambo, a vendor who has set up a shop at the park for close to 8 years.
Juu hiyo miaka iliyopita wako wanalipisha, walikuwa wanaingia free. Sasa vile waliweka kulipisha, sasa mtu anataka kuja maombi, anaona kutuna fare pekee na rudi, akuja hapa tena alipe. Anaona acha tu aombe kwa nyumba.
Walikuwa tu wanakuja, lakini sasa walikuwa ni ile social distance.
Hiyo sasa ndio ilikuwa inaleta shida. Walikuwa wanakuja tu wadogo.
And with high hopes that the year 2021 will be better, it can only be expected that more Kenyans will appreciate the green spaces and parks in the country, and this will only be achieved by continuing to plant trees. For Channel 1 News Hour, I am Emily K. Badi.
We now want to take our first commercial break right here at Channel 1 Weekend. But just before that tonight, I'm asking you whether you think parents are ready to return their learners to school tomorrow, considering the hard economic times they have been talking about and everybody has faced. So at Purity_Museo and at KBC Channel 1 News. Also tell us where you tuned in from. We are live on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. You can stream live. Let's take that breather. We still have plenty more to come. Stay with us.
Simujifanya ni washindani. Ngoja siku ifike.
Mimi ni paka mwitu, nitakupa pura.
Ni usiku sasa, matatizo kuna nini?
Mtume! Nilikwambia wacha kuzungumza na mwanamke. She has no respect. Coming to my party. Wacha kunipiga? Nipige.
Kuwa makini sana ule mke wako. Na usivyo tukugarimu.
Mamako mwenyewe. Wewe usiniudhi. Sawa? Wewe ulimwona mamangu?
Huwezi kunisaidia? Nenda zako.
To you too. Cheers.
Thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching Channel 1 Weekend. The government has been urged to increase bursary allocation to learners to mitigate against the negative economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Igembe South Member of Parliament John Paul Murigi, while issuing bursary funds to more than 12,000 students, said they expect 100% turn-up of learners in schools on Monday. Details of this and other stories in the County News Roundup.
Igembe South Member of Parliament John Paul Murigi says he will table a motion in Parliament to push for the increase in allocation of bursary funds to ensure no student is sent away for lacking school fees. The lawmaker was speaking when he handed bursaries to some 12,000 students in Igembe South.
Wakati huu lazima tuwe na mpango kama wabunge pale ili tuweze kuongeza hii pesa ya bursary angalau iwe inafika milioni 200 ili ile miradi ingine ambayo inafaa kuendelea katika mashule yetu iwe ni pesa ambayo inatosha.
In Mwingi West Sub-County, the government has been urged to put in place measures aimed at catering for all school expenses to cushion parents and learners from the effects of COVID-19.
Ningetaka kuuliza serikali iweze kupanga mpango kambambe na iweze kusimamia gharama ya kurudisha watoto wote katika shule.
The calls coming even as a section of the clergy in the Mount Kenya region urge the government to strictly enforce COVID-19 containment protocols in schools.
Kwa mashule yetu wamejipanga. Lakini tunaomba serikali yetu kuona akaunti ikiwa kuna pesa ama vyombo ama vitu vinatakikana zipelekwe kwa shule, tafadhali hiyo mpango ipewe priority ili mashule mwalimu wasikwame kwa sababu ya kukosa pesa ama vifaa ambavyo vitatumika.
Vile tunajikinga hii COVID tukiwa nyumbani, hata kwa shule tutajikinga. That's the spirit, because life must continue, and for life to continue we take the necessary caution.
Meanwhile, angry parents and pupils of Vikutsa Primary School in Kakamega County have protested the transfer of school land to a family in the area. The family is alleged to have filed and won a court case on the ownership of the school land, but the community has refused to accept the verdict.
Sikia tu ati kuna ruling, wakati wengine tumepitia katika zile rulings tukaona kama si halali, kwa sababu hii shule tangia mimi nizaliwe nimejua kwamba ni shule ya serikali.
Hii ni shule yetu. Tulifungia kwa gate. Sijui ni kwa nini wanataka tutusomee wapi, na tuko wanafunzi 500. Tuko wengi, hakuna penye tunaweza enda.
Finally, more than 300 widows in Trans Nzoia and Kakamega counties have benefited from a donation of seeds, fertilizer and other farm inputs in efforts to help them venture into agribusiness.
Maana niliona mwanamke mjane na yatima wakiteseka. Jambo kubwa ni kuwafikia kiroho, alafu kama kuna kitu kidogo ya kuwabariki nayo, tunawabariki.
Wametufadhili na mbegu na fertilizer na vingine vingi. Kwa hivyo nasema ni asante.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
Moving on, the Drugs Regulatory Authority in India has given a green light to 2 vaccines developed by AstraZeneca with Oxford University and a local firm, Bharat Biotech. This is after both manufacturers submitted data showing their vaccines were safe to use, setting the stage for the inoculation of some 300 million people on a priority list.
In a bid to stem the spread of coronavirus, countries such as India have approved the use of vaccines. This comes at a time when India has recorded about 10.3 million confirmed cases. The Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, being manufactured locally by the Serum Institute of India, will be first targeted at the inoculation of 300 million people on a priority list. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe's government on Saturday imposed a national lockdown for the next 30 days, following a surge in COVID-19 cases. Only essential services have been left operational. Finally, as most countries continue to rush to getting the vaccine, a question lingers upon Somalia's capability to get the vaccine. So far, fewer than 27,000 tests for the virus have been conducted in Somalia, a country of more than 15 million people, one of the lowest testing rates in the world. For Channel 1 News, I'm Sarafina Robbie.
The year 2020 had its fair share of major historic events, including the ravaging COVID-19 pandemic, Donald Trump's bitter lose to Joe Biden in the U.S. presidential election, and tension in Ethiopia and Tanzania, leaving hundreds of civilians dead. It is also the year that 3 words, "I can't breathe," globally resonated to imply racism. Khalid Abdullahi looks at events that made international headlines in the year 2020.
On 3rd January, Iran's top security and intelligence commander was killed in a drone strike at Baghdad International Airport that was authorized by the United States of America. The commander, Major General Qasim Soleimani, who led the powerful Qudsi forces of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was killed along with several officials from Iraqi militias backed by Tehran when an American MQ-9 Reaper drone fired missiles into a convoy that was leaving the airport. The incident sparked a major diplomatic row between the US and Iran. In revenge, Iran fired missiles at 2 US bases in Iraq housing US troops. Still in January, US President Donald Trump survived an impeachment after the Senate vowed to acquit him of charges of abuse of power and obstructing Congress. 48 senators, including 1 Republican, found Trump guilty of abuse of power, while 52, all Republicans, voted to acquit him. On the charge of obstruction of Congress, all 53 Republicans found him not guilty and the remaining 47 senators voted to convict. The acquittal vote was the final step in a 2-week trial marked by impassioned arguments from House Democrats that Trump was a danger to the nation and stalwart support from Senate Republicans for a president who maintains a political stronghold on their party. The novel coronavirus epidemic, which began in Wuhan city in China in December, rapidly spread like a bushfire to every corner of the globe. Millions of people around the world fell sick and hundreds of thousands of others died. The World Health Organization declared the virus a global health emergency and rated COVID-19's global risk of spread and impact as very high, the most serious designation the organization gives. Health authorities in China confirmed that dozens of people in Wuhan were being treated for pneumonia from an unknown source. Many of the sick had visited a live animal market in Wuhan. In March, global markets ground to a halt, foretelling months of economic suffering. As countries banned international travelers, flights went empty and city centers were deserted. Cruise ships floated sluggishly in the open sea. They trapped passengers yearning in vain for a place to port, even as several of them contracted the virus on board the ships. In April, widespread coronavirus restrictions began. Face masks became a familiar sight and social distancing became a way of life. Worldwide, coronavirus cases hit 1 million at the beginning of the month. By the end of April, there were 1 million cases in the United States alone and more than 60,000 deaths worldwide. On May 25th, George Floyd, a 46-year-old black man, was killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, while being arrested for allegedly using a counterfeit bill. During the arrest, Derek Chauvin, a white police officer with the Minneapolis Police Department, knelt on Floyd's neck for about 9.5 minutes after he was handcuffed and lying face down, gasping for breath. Floyd's death triggered worldwide protests against police brutality, police racism and lack of police accountability, with racism characterized in Floyd's last words, "I can't breathe." With the 2020 U.S. elections months away, President Trump returned to the campaign trail, hosting one of his signature rallies in Tulsa, Oklahoma. However, Joe Biden ended Trump's bid by formally being elected as the next president of the United States by members of the Electoral College. With California's 55 electoral votes, Biden crossed the 270 vote threshold needed to win the White House, a milestone that moves him on one procedural step closer to his inauguration on 20th January 2021, despite Trump's refusal to concede defeat. Trump's unprecedented attempts to overturn election results in 4 battleground states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania and Georgia also floundered at the Supreme Court. And 100 years after American women won the right to vote, a right mostly limited to white women at first, Kamala Harris became the first woman and the first black and Asian American elected vice president of the United States. In a related development closer to home, Tanzanian President John Magufuli officially won a second and final term with a landslide victory of more than 84% of the votes in the election. His main opponent, Tundu Lissu, earned 13% of the vote according to the official count that the opposition disputed. Lissu, who had returned to Tanzania from exile 3 months to the election, returned to exile in Europe after losing the election, citing threats on his life. In neighboring Ethiopia, the long-drawn tensions between the federal government led by Nobel laureate Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and defiant authorities in its northern Tigray region erupted into a military confrontation. Hundreds of civilians died while tens of thousands sought refuge in Sudan from airstrikes as the conflicts threatened to further destabilize the strategic Horn of Africa region. Ethiopian ground troops and jet fighters bombed targets across Tigray, battling the ruling party of the country's most northern region, the Tigray's People's Liberation Front. In Uganda, at least 37 people were reported killed during protests following the arrest of opposition presidential candidate Robert Chagulanyi, alias Bobi Wine. The 38-year-old musician turned politician was released on bail in the eastern town of Iganga after being charged with disobeying COVID-19 guidelines that restrict election rallies to fewer than 200 people. Elsewhere, Argentina's Congress legalized abortions up to the 14th week of pregnancy, a groundbreaking move for a region that has some of the world's most restrictive termination laws. Senators voted in favor of the bill after a marathon session with 38 in favor, 29 against and 1 abstention. Abortions were only permitted in cases of rape or when the mother's health was at risk.
Still, the year 2020 will be remembered as the period the COVID-19 pandemic ravaged the globe, grinding day by day the normalcy such as learning, travel, socializing to a halt, hundreds of companies retrenching staff in massive job hemorrhages and plunging economies to recession. Despite the doom and gloom, there were still some moments that stood out, some entertaining, others in rib-cracking. Here are some of those light moments last year.
Tuesday night, the 31st of December 2019, a few seconds to the stroke of midnight. A sense of good tidings ushering in the new year as skies lit up with fireworks. And so did song and dance. However, it was not all rosy after the coronavirus struck. And as the healthcare workers stood in line of fire every day, saving and fighting for the lives of coronavirus patients, Kenyans stood in solidarity with them. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe was guilty of cracking a few ribs during his COVID-19 press briefings when explaining how indiscriminate coronavirus is.
If we continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally.
Usijaribu. Usione wewe kama ni mwelevu sana. Hii virusi haina mtu mwelevu. Wajua sisi watu ambara pengine Kiswahili chetu si kile sanifu kabisa, lakini ile ni kushonga sio? Hiyo hata ukiwa unashonga miraa, tafadhali chukua kidogo, kaa mbali kidogo.
Anakula hiyo sausage moja na bia mbili, anatoka hapo, anaingia hoteli ingine, huko anakula bia mbili ingine na sausage ingine moja, anaingia ingine, anauliza chungwa, hadi sasa ni dessert.
Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, the Jerusalem Challenge was born. Various groups stand up in large numbers to take part in the famous dance challenge. The Master KJ hit track had provided an uplifting soundtrack for the difficult times that were the and criticism over his donation of wheelbarrows and water tanks would not stop the deputy president from doing what he had set his mind on. And so he did it in style. Reggae music was back with the launch of the Building Bridges Initiative report after social distancing protocols disrupted public gatherings.
Mko tayari?
Reggae Music O'Clock.
Nobody can stop reggae. Nobody can stop reggae. Nobody can stop reggae. 'Cause reggae stop. See mama, what can they want to see mama? See mama, where should I see mama?
The BBI season.
If that is the reggae they are talking about, my friends, reggae will stop.
Na mimi nasema nobody can stop reggae.
Nobody can stop reggae.
Eyebrows were raised and so were questions.
Have we sorted out the winner take all question?
And there were concerns, the pair going in opposite directions.
Race hii ni ile ya kuhandover, unajua? Si ndio? Inaitwa relay. Unakimbia ule mwingine anakugojea pale, anatakikana kukugojea. ndio ashike aendelee, si ndio? Lakini sasa my brother William hapa amepinduka, anakimbia nyuma. Nilikuwa naambia Raila hapa, jameni, sijui kama mama nyumbani ataniruhusu, akiniruhusu labda naweza kupata mtu wa kuwa ananitengenezea mambo yangu upande hii sijui.
And the bribe came calling.
Mheshimiwa Rais, recently you went to Kisumu na nikasikia ukisema unatafuta mpango wa kando. Najua mama alikubali. Babangu Raila yuko hapa, ako tayari kuchukua mahari, na ndugu yangu hapa Deputy President akikubali atakuwa best man. Sasa na mama wa taifa tutaendelea kubuild bridges pamoja. Na sasa mtoto wa BBI atazaliwa. Asanteni sana.
And now back home at the broadcasting house, here are some behind the scene moments of newsroom staff.
Aya, baba twende.
Aya, twende sasa.
The vibrancy and day-long
Jesus is Lord.
Remember, there is the Finance Act. Oh no.
Ulisikia wapi?
Joining me live is the Executive Director for the Kenya Alliance. Una nod na si wewe.
The Minister of Health is cautioning Kenyans against laxity, saying that any oh no. Oh my God. Even as the country celebrates the 57th Mashujaa Day, Mashujaa inanitoka kwa kichwa, Jamhuri Day celebration.
What? Hali ya ukavu itaendelea kushuhudiwa katika maeneo mengi ya nchi leo usiku. Hapana. Sio leo usiku.
Unajua last time nilistingiwa na B. Sitaki kutoka na injury yoyote.
Tufanye kazi. Nimekuwa serious sasa. Nimekuwa serious. Serious.
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
So this is Kenyatta Avenue. Oh no, I almost fell.
Idadi ya Wakenya ambao
I'm like, what? We are joined by Wanjo. Oh my God.
Watu 9 waliopatikana. Haki mimi ndo nafanyia hivyo. Yaani watu wamechoka na mimi.
Viongozi wa kisiasa waliokusanyika katika ukumbi wa Bomas.
Look at you.
Sasa nilikuwa nimeweka alarm yangu 4:30. Hiyo 4:30 ndo naanza kuota ndoto nzuri ba. Nasikia brr, brr, brr.
Finally, after a journey of close to 2.5 years, the baby...
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here.
With COVID-19 fatalities and infections.
The magic of FA Cup is back with mouth-watering ties as the Premier League and Championship clubs enter the competition in the third round. KBC Channel 1 will ensure you don't miss out, live and exclusive on your True Sports partner from the 8th to 11th of January 2021 as we kickstart the new year with you in mind. Save the dates for the best and route to the finals. On the next episode of Corner.
Morning, Mom.
Don't ask.
I wasn't going to.
Kama unaweza chukua usukani kwa kwangu.
Mimi sielewi.
Wango and I are finding happiness together again. Does feel like a good dream.
Ayira also brought up the land issue. What is going on here?
I think bado wana investigate
Yes, but that land has nothing to do with my past.
Do you think we should tell Pammy about the land?
Not a good idea.
Do you think she'll go running to Obasi?
Next on.
Guess what he said?
No, I don't have any idea.
The Star Zone.
Say what?
Oh, yes. Because he wants to cultivate gourmet coffee.
My.
Manuel Olazabal showed interest and he loves the project. So he's going to be my partner. He supports me all the way and the project is now a reality.
You want me to just pretend that nothing happened? Is that what's fair?
Max is planning to move to Chiapas so he can develop his dream project. And I don't want to live there. Dad, you're his partner and you can stop him.
It's not time for the sports news, and former league champions Tusker FC came from behind to rescue a point against the 2009 champions Sofapaka in an entertaining Kenyan Premier League match played at Kasarani Stadium.
LSCH gave Sofapaka the lead in the 6th minute.
Lakini hapa ndipo mambo yalikuja kubadilika wakati ambapo krosi moja ilipigwa nzuri kabisa. LSCH alikuwa amekaa mahali panapohitajika wakati unaostahili.
Tusker FC for Luke Namanda took advantage of the throw-in to reply with an equalizer in the 25th minute.
Wamekosa nafasi ya wazi. Nafasi kama hizi huwa ni nadra sana kutokea mwaka mpya.
Both teams fought hard searching for the winner, but the match ended 1-1.
Mimi kulingana na mimi tumepoteza point mbili kwa sababu chances zetu tumepoteza, alafu the kind of team tuko tunacheza nao walikuwa wanacheza high balls so hiyo ni mpira kitambo, so we believe kucheza ball nimeona kuna upungufu kiasi, but tutawako na wachezaji kwa sababu wanaweza improve, si ati ni wabaya, ni hiyo kuwa push kwa mazoezi and then kufanya kuwa tumepata mabao kwa sababu draw away si mbaya, but tuko tunataka point 3.
Tumeshukuru tumetoka na point moja, although tulicheza vizuri. First half tulikuwa slow, walikuja juu sana, but kuja katulia. Tulijua hivyo, tuli expect watakuja hivyo na tusema tuwa contain, but tumekuja kwa game kucheza vizuri. Tumepata point moja.
In other matches, visitors Bidco United humbled Viga United 1-0, Wazito FC saw off Nairobi City Stars 2-1, while Bandari humbled Western Stima 2-0. Karanja David for Channel 1 Sports.
Kenya champion Baldev Chaga admits defending the coveted Safari title against the WRC's elite drivers will be a tall order given the intricate nature of the high-flying WRC machines.
Baldev Chaga, who led the KNRC log after KCB Grunana Kenya Horror events, reckons that fast stage times anticipated from WRC teams will nevertheless help local drivers up their game and approach the Safari with much needed aggression and passion.
You have to remember the WRC drivers have a lot of experience from the whole world, from racing in the deserts to Argentina to Europe to rough gravel in Greece, so they're not very far behind.
Chaga has only driven in one WRC Safari in 1998, finishing 15th overall with Tinu Khan in a Subaru Legacy. The Speedmaster singled out Ian Duncan and Carl Flash Tundo as the other drivers who have done the proper Safari when it counted towards the World Series. Chaga said the Safari at the time was a very long endurance drive and quite different from the present-day sprint format that is expected this year.
To be quite honest, there's no local person who will make any dent to the WRC drivers who are going to come. The machines are far superior. Their experience, the backup, it's phenomenal. We are a small drop in the ocean compared to WRC cars.
The Safari was reinstated in the WRC calendar after an 18 years absence. Karanja David for Channel 1 Sports.
Lautaro Martinez netted a hat trick to help Inter Milan beat relegation, threatened Crotone 6-2 in one-sided Serie A tie. Crotone are second from bottom, and despite an even first half, seemed to run out of steam against Inter Milan's relentless attacks.
Short by. Up steps Golovic. 2-2. Very nicely taken indeed.
And of course, Family Matters is on tonight. The latest report by the World Health Organization reveals some shocking revelations on how a funding gap is disrupting and halting some mental health services around the world. And Elma Drigan, will be helping us unpack this topic on mental health and COVID-19, some of these mental illnesses that are coming up courtesy of COVID-19 and how best to deal with them. It's a serious discussion that we had when I had a sit down with him early this week, so you do not want to miss that conversation. At Purity_Museo and at KBC Channel 1 News, the hashtag to use is Family Matters KBC. Maybe you can just tell us some of the, and even the disruptions caused by COVID-19, they have their mental implications. But just before we have a look at that discussion, we'll be having weather forecast with Yusuf Farah, so do enjoy the rest of our programming. I'm Purity Museo. Lenso Dinka has been a sign language interpreter tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have weather forecast. You need to know how your week will be looking at, even as schools reopen beginning tomorrow, Monday, and also a discussion on how well to take care of your mental health. Stay tuned for that.
Tonight, rainfall is expected in areas highlands west of the Rift Valley region. Temperatures drop to 11 degrees Celsius in Narok, making it the coldest in the country, and strong easterly winds of up to 25 knots will be blowing in areas of Marsabit County and the southern Turkana region. It is the third day of January, the year 2021. Let's now take a look at how tomorrow morning we will be waking up towards as far as weather is concerned. And sunny intervals dominate areas of the northeastern region from Mandera all the way to Garissa. The same will be experienced in areas of Nairobi and its environs, and the same as well in Mombasa, Malindi, Kwale and Kilifi, where you can go for a walk by the beach or go for the swim because the sun will be out. Kisumu and Kitale will also be having sunny intervals, and the same will be experienced in areas bordering Kenya and South Sudan. I'll take a look at the afternoon now, where Kericho and Narok will be having light showers accompanied by sunny intervals. Areas of Malindi and Mombasa will have showers accompanied by sunny intervals. The rest of the country will be having sunny intervals all the way from Mandera to Lodo and Lake Turkana Basin. Let's now take a look at how the temperatures will be. And highs of 35 and lows of 24 in Mandera. Kisumu will have highs of 28 and lows of 18, and Nairobi highs of 27 and lows of 15. That completes your local weather focus. The international weather focus is coming up in a bit. Again, many thanks for keeping it Channel 1. Until I see you again, take care of yourselves and have yourselves a lovely night.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on this episode of Family Matters. My name is Purity Museo. The latest survey by the World Health Organization shows that some burden in terms of funding, which is halting and disrupting mental health services in Africa. And Kenya is one of the countries that has been affected and, of course, experiencing funding constraints. And this coming at a time when mental health conditions and of course, are on the rise due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Experts say the lockdown restrictions that had been imposed since COVID-19 was first reported globally, as well as the economic constraints occasioned by the pandemic, is one of the contributors to the mental health challenges on the rise in the country. So joining us tonight is Elmad Regan, who is a psychologist based here in the country, to just talk about this important discussion. Thank you so much for making time for the show tonight. And of course, we are talking about mental health, and there have been a lot of discussions on mental health crisis globally. Of what concern should this be in the country? Maybe let's talk about the burden from where you sit as an expert. Are we experiencing a surge of cases of mental health conditions?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me on the show. And as you've rightly mentioned, there is cause for alarm because there's a surge of cases of mental illnesses in the country, especially occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. Because when there's a pandemic globally, that means there's cause for alarm. And alarm brings with it fear and anxiety. And so the moment there's fear and anxiety, people will tend to look for different resorts to buffer themselves against any sort of pandemic that might bring, uncertainties in their lives. And see, that's why the reports are saying that cases of suicide, for example, have gone up, cases of anxiety as a disorder have gone up, cases of depressive disorders have gone up as a result of this pandemic, and of course significant other variables that we will talk about as the show continues.
Right. Yeah. And when you say as a result of the pandemic, what aspect of the pandemic are we talking about? Is it because of the affected economy, the lockdowns? How exactly is this pandemic affecting people mentally? So largely the lockdown, as I've mentioned before, the lockdown imposes a great deal of anxiety and fear. And you see, that means that people will do anything and everything to make sure that they are cushioned from the effects of the lockdown. As you all can remember, when the partial lockdown was announced, for example, in the country, people went on a shopping spree, stocking their shelves with goodies, food stuff, and all this, so that they are safe from the effects of the lockdown. And this consequently meant that people were jobless. Because the moment you've gone and done your shopping and everything and you're safe that I'm going to stay home, that means for somebody else who's producing whatever they're producing, that means there's no more job for them. Yeah. So with this prolonged, it means therefore that the economy suffers. Gradually, every other aspect of livelihood is affected by the fact that there is this lockdown imposed by the occasioning of the pandemic. Yeah. And with the surge of the mental health conditions globally, and initially we were talking about the kind of stigma that is associated with mental illness, and people are not coming out because they do not want to be stigmatized. Would you say that now people are coming out to talk about what they are going through and to seek help, or we are still where we were before the pandemic? Unfortunately, we are still where we were before the pandemic, because human beings, before they open up and share that they have a problem, especially men for that reason, it will take them a bit of time. Because with this pandemic, seeking for help almost seems like a shame to some people, because people tend to assume or presume that if I ask person X and Y for help, then I might be a bit of a stubborn thorn in the flesh to them, because they're also suffering the same consequences of the pandemic. And see, people suffer in silence, and if you ask me, it's even more worse before the pandemic came. Yeah, so this silence creeps in the individual's psyche and every other aspect of their livelihoods, and it makes things even more worse. So the stigma has even gone high, if you ask me, and those who ask for help are only but a small percentage out of the larger population. So even from your day-to-day interaction with your patients, you wouldn't say the number of those who are seeking help has increased because of this stigma and people shying away? No, maybe only those who are repeat clients who have maybe had previous sessions with me or with other experts, but some do come as a result of referrals to seek help because they see it as a last resolve. When everything else has failed, they're like, okay, fine, I think I should go and see a therapist so that I'm assisted in this situation. Yeah. And right now, globally, mental health is the topic of discussion everywhere. So what can be done to help people who are struggling? Because right now, I know 1 in every, even 5 or 4 people are experiencing one or two of these conditions. So what could be done to help these people come out and talk about this issue? Because it's a crisis that is building up globally. We're not just talking about Kenya here. Yeah, so what should be done in my perspective and my opinion is that there should be a lot of sensitization to the masses.
Because minus that happening, then it will be very difficult to achieve whatever outcomes we seek to achieve. You see, the same way we give airwave or airplay to battles against cancer, against malaria, and against all these other illnesses, is the same way that we should champion to, give mental health and mental illness the airplay that it needs. Because technically speaking, the moment the mind is sick, the whole body is sick. And so you cannot treat any other part of the body if the mind is sick. So a lot of sensitization needs to go into place globally, locally, regionally, so that everybody is aware and start embracing mental health and the intricacies that involve, so that everybody is aware of the consequences, the effects, how it happens, all this, so that we are all in the same boat and moving towards the same direction, that is wellness.
Right, and before that happens, you'll be telling us what actually this mental illness is all about.
Definitely, yeah.
But we had, before the pandemic, we had a mental health task force that was going around and seeking public opinion on what they feel about the conditions in the country. And most of the recommendations that Kenyans had was to make mental health conditions a public health emergency in the country. Maybe from your own opinion, would you say that these conditions are being, or people who are struggling with mental illnesses are getting the kind of attention that they deserve? Should that be a challenge?
It is a challenge, and if you ask me, it should be made a public health concern and given the attention it needs. But again, unfortunately, it's not being given the much attention it deserves. Because some people say that, well, it's not as crucial as other illnesses. You could argue on those lines, but as I mentioned earlier, the moment the mind is unwell, then normal functioning ceases to be. Because with mental health, the moment your behavior is not in sync, your emotions, your feelings are out of touch, then there is a huge challenge that is, that is to be overcome. And so, in my opinion, from where I see it, the attention it needs to be given is not yet achieved, and that's a big challenge.
With the attention that is being given not yet achieved, and with the kind of stigma, patients are not coming out, are you seeing an uptick or an increase of these cases as we even continue to fight COVID-19 and its effects? Are you, as an expert, seeing the country reporting more cases and getting to a point where now things are out of control?
There's likely to be an influx in the cases being reported with regard to mental illnesses or mental health for that reason, because the moment you start downplaying such a serious concern, health concern like mental health, then we are just having a ticking time bomb in our hands. If I may give the example of when the movement restriction was lifted, and consequently the restaurants and the bars or operations uplifted as well. That week alone there was an increase in cases of domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and all these other forms of violence, which are related to issues of mental health. Because why would somebody in their right senses pick up a knife and stab their spouse, or pick up a gun and shoot their lover for that reason? It's because we are still in the cocoon believing that it's not as serious as we think it is. But the more, in my projections, the more this pandemic exists and the more we don't give mental health the attention it deserves, then we should brace ourselves for even tougher days.
All right.
Yeah.
Well said. So you're talking about awareness that ought to be done in regard to mental health. And of course, every person was affected by the pandemic in one way or another. So when we talk about mental conditions, is it just the normal stress of life, or it goes beyond this? Let's define mental conditions or illness. Unhealthy,
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, thanks for bringing that up, because often enough we tend to confuse what mental health is and what mental illness is, because at times we even use the terms interchangeably.
Yeah.
So mental health is the state of being well, physically, socially, emotionally, cognitively, and even in terms of your behavior. It's the wholesome wellness of an individual, especially with regard to how their cognitive functions are related. That is mental health. Now, mental illness, on the other hand, is the absence or the disconnect in functionality of a person's thinking, feelings, emotions, behaviors, and judgments. Now, when these aspects are not in sync, either one of them or all of them, then you say that there is a reason here, or rather there is a cause for alarm that needs to be looked into. Yeah.
So now we are talking about when you're not mentally healthy, so you are sick.
You are sick?
Yes.
Like somebody who has any other ailment and you need to be treated for that condition.
Right. So do we have different types of the disorders that are associated with mental unhealthy lifestyles?
Yeah.
Or what exactly, are we talking about depression, bipolar disorders? What are some of these disorders that are linked to unhealthy mental health? Or which term do I use?
Mental illness. Yes.
Mental illness.
Yeah, so there's quite a number of mental illnesses or mental health disorders, but I'm going to mention just but a few which are common. So one, we have anxiety disorders, which typically are accustomed by a great deal of panic and worry. For no apparent reason, you're just worried or anxious about what will happen, what's going to happen. So we have anxiety disorders as was one category. We have mood disorders, which include bipolar mood disorder, where, if I may give an example, maybe in the morning you wake up, you're feeling very hyper, very lively, very jovial, but in the evening, for no apparent reason at all, you're gloomy and sad and down.
Do you need treatment for that?
That needs treatment because it's not normal. I mean, what triggered this being sad all of a sudden?
I
mean, nobody wronged you, nobody stepped on your foot, nobody did something wrong to you, but from now you just get irritable and you go down. Yeah, so that equaling this stream. So that is the mood disorders. We also have eating disorders like anorexia. So anorexia is a condition where somebody decides to eat very small portions of food, and especially on this disorder, ladies or girls are culprits because they want to have a certain body form or body shape to fit into what the society deems as good or as okay. And some even go to extents of even using slimming pills to maintain that body shape that they desire. The flip side of that is what we call bulimia. Now, bulimia is the binge eating. You eat a lot to what human beings will call crazy. It's that eating that is just having that insatiable appetite just to eat and eat. And if you ask the person doing that, they say that they do that to cope with their stressors. But is it healthy? Because the more you ingest food into your body, you are at the verge of getting other conditions. You might get diabetes if, for example, you're taking a lot of sugar and stuff like that. Yeah. Then we also have depressive disorders and schizophrenic disorders and many other ones. Yeah, but these are the major ones which are common, which we tend to contend with on a daily basis. And of course, the post-traumatic stress disorder, which happens as a result of having a bad experience that happened to you maybe a couple of years ago, and then from nowhere, you've healed, but it hits you back again, and you start going through the process again as if it happened yesterday.
Yes, and the ones that you mentioned, because you're talking about anxiety, depressive, are they linked? Would you say that the pandemic may have caused this, or what exactly are usually the causes for all this?
There are different causes that attribute to mental health. One, we have genetics which come to play, because some of these disorders are inherited. They can be passed from a generation to another, or from mother to child, for example. Yeah. Assuming, for example, a mother was an alcoholic during her pregnancy and a heavy drug user, and she delivers, chances are the child might take up the same tendency, because alcoholism in itself is a disease. It's a mental disease that needs treatment. Yeah. So genetics also comes to play as a risk factor that predisposes one to having mental health condition. Then we also have the environment where somebody has been brought up in. If, say, for example, you were raised up in a very violent environment where you're exposed to violence, a lot of chaos, as you grow up, you have tendencies of being a maniac or a maniac for that reason. And manic disorders are there, and they have very bad consequences. Yeah. Then there is also drug use, as I've mentioned. Some people just decide to take up drugs and use it. And the more they use these drugs, they consequently but surely affect their mental health. And of course, previous experiences like accidents and traumas and all that can attribute to one having mental health. Now, coming to the pandemic, is it a cause for alarm, and is it possible that it causes mental health illness? The answer is yes, because pandemics are things that don't just happen every other day. They probably take a lot of time. Like the last serious pandemic that we had in the world was the Spanish flu. Yeah, and that was a long time ago, and how people coped with that was quite different from how we cope with it today. Of course, they had their fair share of challenges and troubles with regard to how it affected their mental health. But even today, the announcement that there was a pandemic made people look at things differently. even the daily briefings in the country, the CS for Health coming to give numbers and figures about, the pandemic, that alone is enough to shock people and bring, fear to people. But the intention, I believe, is not to shock people, but to inform people that this and this is happening and this is how we should handle it. Yes. And
because that's the intention. Most of the time when pandemic come, the intention of awareness is just to make people stay safe.
True.
Because in some instances, there's no cure or vaccine for some of these viruses that we experience. So how best should pandemics be handled, or how best should people react to pandemics to just minimize the rates of mental illnesses that come up each time there is a pandemic?
Yes, of course, with pandemics, there are different strategies of response that are put to play so that the masses are well braced and well equipped on how to handle the pandemic. Now, speaking in the mental health front, what needs to be done, or rather what is often done, is to educate the masses on the truths with the pandemic and the lies or myths regarding the pandemic. Because the moment there is a speculation or a myth regarding the pandemic, then there's a lot of confusion and mayhem that accompanies that. And that is what brings the anxiety and the fear. And if this is prolonged, then it might even go down to depression, because people don't know how to react to the news they have received. And so that's why any health committee or health team in any country, for that reason, will try as much as possible to give the correct and precise information with regard to the pandemic at hand, or if it's an epidemic within the country, so that the masses have the right information and they know how to handle themselves with regard to that particular situation at hand.
And at this time, it was inevitable, because even the scientists are still saying we are learning more about the pandemic. One day they wake up and say it's not airborne. The other minute you hear it's airborne. One time WHO comes out and says that actually there is herd immunity. Just the other day, it is said that there is no immunity, and if you once are infected, you could be reinfected. So how can really, in such a time or scenarios, how can people be cushioned from these shocking messages that, because when you are told that it's airborne, it's no longer about social distancing, then the first thing that comes to your mind is, could I have contracted it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is true that with pandemics, there are different dynamics that go to play, and pinpointing, exactly the causative agents, for example, can be a bit challenging or difficult. But the truth is, there are some very basic measures that, when followed, can help to a great percentage or to a great deal. Basic things like personal hygiene go a long way in helping reduce the effect of this pandemic. Case in point, we've seen, just the other week the schools were reopened, and the numbers that are being reported in the country are again causing alarm. So the question is it that we relaxed so much and thought that this thing is over and, we can live back to normal, but then, as we see from the numbers, the twist is, is taking another curve altogether. So what's important is, in as much as there's still, a bit of fumble here and there with exactly how to contain the pandemic, we should go to the very basics of healthcare that you are given from credible sources like the WHO and the Ministry of Health locally, so that we are safe. In as much as there is a bit of uncertainty, you may say, or somebody might argue, but there are those basic guidelines which are given, which are way much better than living carefree, because it's better, as it said, it's better to prevent than to cure. Yeah.
And you mentioned that if not taken care of the anxiety and everything that you're going through, then you may fall into depression. Does that mean that depression is maybe more severe kind of a mental illness as compared to others that you had mentioned?
All of them are severe, if you ask me. But you see, when, say, for example, somebody has just a simple stressor, before they reach to the level of depression, they have gone through various similar other stages. Because some things are just like a normal stressor, that I'm just stressed, I think I'll handle it. And before you know it, you start going into worry. Then worry sets in, you start panicking, anxiety knocks at the door. The last stage you go there is depression. So it is gradual. It's not something that's happening, pop, instant, I'm in depression. It takes time before it gets to that level. Even with these other conditions, it's not something that just happens spontaneously. Unless, of course, it is genetic or inherited, then you could say that this is a different case. But most of them take time. They are gradual, and the moment they hit hard. Yeah.
And we know the pandemic is one of the contributors to what we are experiencing right now.
Yes.
But apart from what is happening globally, do we have other risk factors to mental illnesses?
So generally, the ones I've mentioned are the ones that really should be looked into in depth. But of course, there are other ones like say violence that was not intended. What do I mean by this? Say, for example, you are a security enforcement agent, and you say you're going about your business, trying to keep law and order. Then in the midst of your work, you get entangled in a confrontation that maybe requires you to pull out a rifle and do whatever you need to do. Now, such scenes, when come to play sometime later, they might affect you. So at times, even the kind of job environment that you are in might bring these stressors and lead us into depression or any other mental health conditions. Because as I said, there are those jobs which are very risky and require a lot of specialized attention and care. And if not handled, then, of course, just a question of time before you be diagnosed with a mental illness.
For instance, the frontline health workers.
Exactly.
Can you paint a picture for us on what they might be going through mentally and how best how best should they be protected? In your own words, do you think that they have well been protected even as they stay at the front line in the fight?
Yeah. So in the scenario of the healthcare workers, of course, they are the people that we hold dear to our hearts, because the kind of work they do is unmatched, so to speak. Because the moment somebody is unwell, they believe that if I go to this hospital, this health facility, I'm going to be assisted and get the help I need. But the problem is the country is sometimes understaffed. You go to some facilities, we don't have enough medics to assist with various conditions. So this means that this medic will have to work extra hours so that they attend to all the patients they need to attend to. And this consequently means that they'll go into burnout. They'll be stressed. They'll start feeling fatigued. They'll be anxious at some point. And just a question, I'm out of time, sorry, before they go into depression. Yeah. So with the with the healthcare workers, in my opinion, more needs to be done, because the work they're doing, as I mentioned, is quite unmatched. In terms of how their work conditions in some facilities, honestly, it's deplorable. That's why at times when you see them going to the streets and clamoring for haki yetu, it means a lot, because for them to leave and say that haki yetu, it means that they need something that is much more sensible, better working environments, better pay, and better terms of engagement, so that they are also healthy and in the good state of mind to deliver these health services, so that you don't have accidents as a result of negligence or fatigue from these healthcare workers. Yes.
And what would it mean for a country to have a large population that is mentally unhealthy? Let's talk about the impact, of what impact either to an individual, family, even a country.
Yeah, so I'd like to start from the very basic unit, the family unit, because assuming just one person in the family, assuming it's the breadwinner, the father has a mental health condition, that means that the other partner who is left, that's the mother, will have to match up to deliver for the kids or the household for that reason. That possibly means working 2 jobs to make ends meet. This one parent has to pay the fees, for example, they have to pay the bills, they have to make sure that there's food on the table, and all these other aspects. And when she does this, she's also struggling with her fair share of stresses. And if she doesn't open up to a professional for assistance, then she's likely to transfer these same challenges or these same problems to the children. And even if she doesn't transfer them directly, the children will see that mom is suffering to make ends meet for us. What does that do to them? Their academics are likely to be hampered or affected by that. They go to school, they don't match up. They'll graduate fine. They graduate, they go to the job market, they don't have the competencies needed to match up in the job market. That's why you end up having, for lack of a better word, quirks in different professions, right. And that consequently means that the whole economy of the country is affected, the GDP is affected, and that makes the country sink and go low. So that's how big it can get. Yeah.
And from the seriousness of which you are describing this, the impact that mental illnesses can have in a nation. So how do you diagnose mental illness? What are some of the things that you can look out for in a person who is not mentally unhealthy? Do you also have some self-assessment tips?
Yeah, so yes, there are some basic self-assessment tips that are available. Thanks to the internet, we have all the information at our disposal. But above and beyond, I think it's important to see a therapist once in a while so that we just check how we're faring on. You see, the same way that we go for routine checkups for our bodies, say our dental hygiene, we go to our dermatologist, the same way that we should take caution to visit practitioners in the mental health field so that we get to see how well we are psychologically or mentally for that reason. Yeah. So the problem is, at times we we overlook the effect that these conditions can have on us. And if this is prolonged, then there's a problem. So how do you self-diagnose? Because different mental illnesses have different signs. Some are related and might confuse you, but generally, the moment you start feeling irritable, the moment you start feeling tired, anxious, you lose sleep at night, loss of appetite, these basic things, the moment they start going away, then you should ask yourself, I think something is wrong here and I need to see a doctor or a counselor for that reason, so that I am assisted through. But I'm like, I'll just be fine. I think I'm just tired. But if it's the same story Monday to Monday, there is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And still on helping patients who are not mentally okay.
Yes.
So do we have treatment for some of these? Can they be reversed? Can some of these conditions be reversed? And which one would you say it would be really too late to help our patients who are suffering from the kinds that you'll be talking about?
Yeah, so the good news is that most of these mental health conditions can be reversed or can be treated, of course, with therapy. The only challenge is that they might take a bit of time to reverse these conditions, if at all the person has lead into the later stages of the mental health condition at hand. Some, of course, because of their nature, might need specialized care and attention, including admission or other forms of treatment so that the person is restored back. Some might need medication as well as therapy. Some might need therapy alone. Some might need purely medication. So depending on the level that the person is, it would mean different interventions. I wouldn't exclusively say that some are completely irreversible. But the truth is, with the kind of care that is accorded to this patient, then they can get better or eventually be restored to their former health. Yeah.
And how do you describe a scenario where someone just wakes up and maybe commits suicide or even hurts the other person? To what is it still a mental health issue, or because sometimes when people go to court and they're asked why they had to do what they are doing, they say it's anger. How do you differentiate that it's just someone is only angry but doesn't have any of these mental conditions?
Yeah, thank you. So you see, with the example you're giving, say for example, somebody wakes up, takes a rifle or a weapon and injures the other person, we can't honestly say that it's just anger. This is something that has been contemplated time and again. And you see, before somebody takes that action, that means that they planned it carefully. Or rather, first of all, they thought about it, they planned it, and then they went to execution. Now, before reaching execution, they had the chance in between to make things different. But because there's that overwhelming urge to do or to make do with their plan, they go ahead and do it. And whatever reasons they give that I was angry or I was agitated is more or less but a defense mechanism to justify whatever they did. They know very well it's wrong, what they did is wrong, and that's why they'll say that I was angry or was agitated. Yeah. So saying that, I just did it is not reason enough. And that's why I said it's important the moment you start feeling irritable, uneasy, it's good to reach out for help so that you're assisted, so that we avert situations whereby we wake up to the news and the first thing we see on the news article is somebody has, killed their partner, somebody has killed their child or injured their neighbor. Yes.
As we wind up, let's address the issue of the solution. Let's give a solution to our viewers and, of course, the gap there is. For a very long time, there is stigma. For a very long time, mental illnesses are usually associated with someone is crazy, mad. Those terms are used for any person coming out to say that they are not mentally okay. What really, do we have this surprise bullet that can sort all these out, and all of a sudden people are now coming out to talk about these issues? What gap there is and solutions moving forward to just avert what you're talking about, the crisis that we are staring at as a nation? Yeah,
so in my opinion, I think it's important and poignant to start from the very basic unit, and that is the family. Let it start from in there. The moment your child comes home from school, for example, and they seem off, sit down with them, ask them, you seem unwell, is there anything the problem? Be a friend to your daughter, be a friend to your son. Let them know that you mean well for them. Let them know that you care and that you are there to listen to them. The spouses as well, whenever you have confrontations or issues in the family, try and reach out to the other partner and get to understand what the problem is. Because at the moment you start assuming that, they're just a kid, they're just an adult, they can cope on their own, then we miss the point. So the solution, if you ask me, starts from the home, from the family. The moment the family gets it right, the country will get it right, and eventually the globe will be a better place.
And the society.
And the society at large, of course. So, and see, even as you're mentioning, with the society, the stigma that comes with it, the moment somebody says that I am unwell, I have this mental health condition, don't be quick to judge. Seek to understand. And I think that's where we miss the point. A lot of us are so quick to open their mouth and cast aspersions, minus understanding. Before you say that person X and Y is crazy, or we dab them with these funny names, get to understand what the problem is. Because the moment you understand, you'll be empathetic and not sympathetic. And that's what's needed.
But I think, Elmad, it also comes narrows down to understanding and awareness, as you had said, because if I wake up and tell my parents that I feel moody, they'll just be like harsh on me, and they'll not think it might be a mental health disorder. So how do we change that again?
And even with that, I'd say the moment you know yourself,
or they'll call you lazy.
Well, chances are they'll call you lazy, but the moment you know yourself, you will undoubtedly be able to govern your internal thought processes and be able to match up with those of other persons.
All right, Elmad Regan, thank you so much for your time and for helping us understand more about mental health and how to take care of ourselves.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, and that's all the time we had for our show tonight. Thank you so much for your company. It's always great to have you join us on Family Matters every Sunday at 9 p.m. See you again next time on our next episode. Do enjoy the rest of our programming, and God bless.
Vera Beauty College.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College, with branches in Nairobi, Eldoret, Thika, and Meru. Did you know that we are a TVET approved institution? We offer courses in fashion design, interior design in soft furnishing, event decoration, flower arrangement, event planning, hairdressing, barbering and dreadlocks, beauty therapy, makeup, nail technology, spa massages, teaching skills, TOT, solo business management, and many more. Register now and visit our website on www.verabeautycollege.com. You can also call on 0725 923 550 Nairobi branch, 0728 087 689 Eldoret branch, 0722 22 7428 Thika branch, 0725 000 706 Meru branch. Vera Beauty and Fashion College, a TVET approved institution.
On the next episode of Ashoka.
Is that the way to enter Kichak's palace? So, are you planning to enter Kichak's palace or what?
Nobody should get to know about it. Understood?
This is your last chance. If I do not beget a child this time, then I will be forced to abandon you, Bhamini.
My name is Leonard Chumo from Masters Men Africa, a men's ministry in the continent of Africa that has a mission to mobilize men for Christian service and excellence in life. Today, I'm privileged to share with you from the Word of God in the book of Mark chapter 4, from 35, verse 35. It's a scripture you may have heard about. Jesus calms the storm. But I want to talk to you about getting to the other side. I figure that, if you're like me, I desire to get to the other side. If you're a young person, desiring God for marriage, you want to cross to the other side. If you've been challenged in business and maybe because of COVID-19, your business is, either shut down or you're not profitable, you would like to go to the other side. Maybe it's your marriage or any other challenge, you can name it, and you desire that God come quickly. I would like to cross to the other side that is better, the other side that you can serve in. The Bible records a story here about him calming a storm. And it says, on that day when evening had come, he said to them, that's the disciples, let us go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were with him, and a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And he woke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, Why are you afraid? And he's saying to you today, why are you afraid? Have you still no faith? And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, Who then is this man? Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? That's the Jesus that I serve. That's the Jesus that I'm talking about. Even wind can stop at his word. Even the ocean can stop. Even, losses can stop at his word. Sickness and disease can stop at his word. But what does it mean to cross to the other side? In this scripture, crossing to the other side was not just crossing over across the sea. It was much more. It was going to other people, the unwanted people. The Bible talks about communities that were not, like the Hebrews or the Jews. And so crossing that ocean really meant that you were navigating change and transition to places that you had never been to a people that were not your favorite people, to a place that was totally new, people who never knew the word of God. And Jesus asked the disciples, let's go there. I'm inviting all of us today, if you're a Christian, we need to go to people that are not rich. If you are, challenged in some way, God is coming to you, coming across the sea. You may feel you're too far away, too far in sin. You've done so much. Your business is in shambles. Your family is totally broken. Your children are disobedient and everything, too far. And you feel like Jesus will never get across to you. Today, God is coming. Jesus is coming across. And you will get no matter what, even if there is opposition, even if there is wind, even if your landlord is against you, or you have auctioneers coming. They may be coming. Maybe you've lost everything, lost all favor with your employer, but Jesus is coming across the sea. He will make it there. I announce to you today that God, who created the universe, he created the sea and the ocean, he will stop at nothing other than getting to you. And nobody, no nothing, no church, no nation, no corruption, no lack of money, no nothing will stop him at getting to you. So be encouraged, and I'll challenge you to rise up, because you're the loved and favored of God. And today he wants to come across to you. So accept and invite him today. Let me pray with you. Father, thank you for your child that is watching this program. I know you created the earth and the heavens and the seas. And God, you're reaching out to your children today in their places of challenge. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they're challenged financially, their business, employment. Lord, I pray that you reach out to them regardless of the opposition that may come their way. And I decree and declare that they are favored and loved. They are not despised, they are not rejected, but they are your children. In Jesus' name I pray. Again, thank you very much for watching. My name is Leonard Chomo. Let's go to the kingdom. Let's cross over to the other side. We work with men and challenging each other to live for him in the marketplace. God bless you.
Merci, commissaire. Merci.
Alors?
La cible est toujours en place.
La cible quitte l'appartement. 10 secondes.
Démarre.
Démarre.
Alors, culotte ou pas culotte? Bon, allez, un peu de sérieux, les gars. Elle tourne à gauche. Elle va au Nemours.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Qu'est-ce qui vous ferait plaisir?
Un thé au lait, une orange pressée
Et un croissant au beurre. J'ai déjà passé la commande.
Merci.
De rien.
Vous avez un visuel?
On a un visuel. Elle boit son thé.
Quoi, répète?
Elle boit son thé.
Vous m'avez demandé un thé, monsieur?
Ah non, non, merci.
J'arrive tout de suite.
Bonjour, monsieur. Bonjour. Je cherche Elise Ward.
Ward.
Ouais.
C'est madame.
Ok, merci. Bonjour. Elise Ward.
Oui, c'est moi.
J'ai un colis pour vous. Il y a quelqu'un qui lui parle. On dirait un coursier.
Yes.
She's at the usual cafe. She's speaking with a man. He looks like a messenger, but you said to call if anything changed in her routine.
Stay on his face. His face.
Do you think it's Alexander Pierce?
I think everybody's pissed.
Non, mais c'est bon. C'est cadeau. Je vous l'offre.
Merci.
Hop. Voilà.